Hey Internet, it's me and her, and she is not amused. I'm gonna put her down. I don't need to actually hold her. I've shown off a lot of my pets in these videos. I also have a dog, as you've seen. I'm a big animal person. Anything with animals, I generally love. You know, I love going to zoos, aquariums. I used to volunteer at a shelter. You used to sit. Anything with animals, I love. I think they're great. So when I heard about a horror movie centered entirely around a dog, I was very curious. You know, that sounds like a unique story, a unique perspective, a brand new movie. One sec. Okay, bye. I thought that sounded like something interesting that I had to check out. And so I did. And I don't know. I want to give them credit first and foremost. You know, they made what we've all been saying we want. They made a unique movie. It's not a remake, it's not an adaptation, it's not a sequel, it's a brand new story with a very unique narrative twist. So kudos for that. The problem is, doing something unique doesn't always mean good. Like, people don't want original stories just for the sake of original stories. They want original stories that are good. And, you know, I'm not going to say the movie's terrible. There are a lot of good things about it that I'll get into in a minute. But overall, I don't know if it was good. Like, I get, you know, they had a dog and it's very novel. But once that wears off, there's nothing for the story, really. It's very kind of just all over the place. The pacing is weird. Not really 100% sure what happened. Like, okay, the guy is a dog owner, and it's pretty clear that, you know, he's in and out of, I don't know if it's rehab or the hospital for, like, cancer or something. He's in and out of medical facilities. The way his attitude kind of is, or the way he's living, you maybe think that he's possibly on drugs, but maybe not. Maybe it's cancer. I don't know. But either way, he is clearly not doing well. And, you know, all he has in the world, basically, is his sister, who is very concerned about him, but he sees her as overbearing, and then also his dog, who's his best friend. And, you know, he goes up to his grandpa's old house, where we presume the grandfather died, and he decides he's going to live there now. And through a little bit of telephone exposition, the sister tells him that the grandfather died in that house. Or no, she doesn't. She says that the house was haunted, which is why you think grandfather died there. And then weird things happen that the guy doesn't see, but the dog sees. You know, the dog is seeing ghosts, basically. And so that kind of lends credence to the haunted thing. But then at the end, you know, the guy is just getting more and more impatient and upset with everything, and he, like, ties the dog up outside, and he's over it. And the dog has more weird ghost visions, and he somehow gets back into the house. It's not explained if these visions are also magic or what the deal was, because the dog did get inside to a locked house with everything closed. So there must actually be a ghost, and it's working with the dog? I'm not sure. But the dog gets back inside, and the guy dies of, like, an OD in bed. And the dog tries to save him from death. And unfortunately, we don't see the bit where he goes, which you assume are the gates of, I don't want to say hell, but to the afterlife. And then he drags the guy back out. I would have liked to have seen that interaction, but we don't. But we see the dog drag him out, and then it says, no, you can't save me from this one, you know, you're a good boy. And then the guy just gives up and dies. Very weird story. And like I said, a lot of plot holes. I don't know, first and foremost, you know, the ghost. It's having physical impacts. You know, the dog is able to get back in the house and break off his chain and do all these things that this dog could not do. So you assume it's a ghost, and if it's a friendly ghost, you know, maybe it's the other dog that we saw through, like, the ghost's dreams or visions or whatever they were. I don't know. It's not really clear, and I wish it was because I would like to better understand what the hell was going on. And then, yeah, I don't know. The whole thing's just kind of a mess. I wanted to like it. I really did. You know, this has good scores online, which I'm learning more and more means nothing. Critical acclaim for a movie means crap because As Above, So Below is poorly rated on IMDb, and yet millions of people rave about Skinamarink, and that movie is bullshit. So, yeah, I don't know what happened here. It just. I can tell what they were going for. I appreciate that they were trying something new, and they trained the dog really well. A lot of props to the animal handler for this movie because this dog was incredibly well trained. You know, it looked concerned when it was supposed to. It looked in the direction of the things that were happening when it was supposed to. The dog did a great job, which means the animal handler did a great job. So I will give them tons of props. The effects are hit or miss. There are some times where there's this weird, like, mud monster thing, which I think is actually just the actor covered in mud. But it looks kind of cool. But there are other parts, like where the dog jumps through the window on the side door, and it's terrible CG. Like, it looks like early 2000 CGI. It's not a good render at all of that glass with the rain. Like, there's too much on screen. They could not handle it. The render looks awful. So overall effects, yeah, give it like a 6 because there are some scenes that look really cool, other scenes that look really cheesy. So overall, mixed bag. It's just a mess, man. There's the neighbor that is there for no reason. You keep thinking he's gonna be creepy, but then he never is. He's just the neighbor. And, like, the first time you're like, oh, a creepy thing, but then the next 2 or 3 times it's like, why do you keep trying to jump scare me with this same guy? It doesn't, you're not doing anything. You know, the sister trying to be portrayed as overbearing or caring or whatever they were trying to do with her, I don't know, it felt like a wasted character. We didn't get enough of her for it to mean anything, so it just, I don't know, it didn't do much. And then I did kind of like how they were doing a parallel with the TV show. I know that's very cliche and overdone in movies, especially horror movies, but I think it paid off at the end. You know, the first time you see the TV show, they're talking about how, like, Neanderthals live side by side with dogs, and dogs are man's best friend, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, you see or hear the show in the background a few more times, and then at the very end, when the guy is on his bed and he dies, the show says the end and then cuts to black. And that was just a nice little touch. Like, I like these little scenes of when he died, but you don't know he died yet. But with everything happening, like, you're like, you realize after the fact, oh yeah, he definitely, that's when he died. The only issue is, you get those clues and they really spell it out for you about a minute after it happens. So it wasn't enough of, like, a gap to make it clever or to make you really think back and be like, oh, yeah, look at all these clues or these hints. Like, I totally understand now. You know, Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. Like, you didn't get enough time for this to be a substantial reveal. He died, and then, like, a minute later, they're like, oh, yeah, there's his corpse. You can see him looking at his own body. He's dead now. So it didn't pay off. I feel like that would have been more fun if they did that, like, the first night he went to the grandfather's house, so that the entire second act and leading up to the big conflict with death at the end, he was actually dead for all of it. I think that would have been more fun and would have explained the supernatural stuff more. I feel like the payoff would have been better if you let it linger out there more, and then people had looked back and like, oh yeah, no, this is when it was happened, here were all the clues, like, that would have been a more entertaining movie. And it would have explained why the ghost was interacting with the dog physically and, like, actually making things happen and, like, opening doors and stuff for him. You know, if it was this guy wanting to make sure his dog was okay, and so that's why he kept, you know, trying to, like, at first trying to shut him out and be like, no, stay away because I'm dead and I don't want you to see that. Like, just go. Just stop trying to be the guard dog. Just go be a dog. Like, you're okay now. And then when that didn't work at the end, finally he gives in and, you know, embraces him, but then says, "Hey, you can't save me from this, but you're a good boy." That I feel like that would have had a more emotional impact and would have been a better payoff. What we got is just, I don't want to say directionless. Like, I feel like they had a narrative. I don't know, it didn't work. Maybe it just didn't work for me. Like I said, the ratings online for this were pretty good. A lot of people seem to like this. I don't know if it's just because it was novel and unique or if they genuinely like the story, but either way, a lot of people enjoyed this film. So, this could very easily just be my take, and I accept that. If everyone disagrees, great, I'm wrong. But, I don't know, for me, it just didn't do it. I wanted it to, I really did, and it wasn't there. So, as good as the animal handler and the animal itself were, and as good as the effects were in a couple of the scenes, and as novel as the idea was, and as refreshed as I was to see something new and unique, I can't recommend this one. It was like a 3 or a 4. I was bored for a lot of it and confused for the rest of it. It didn't do it for me at all. So, it's a bummer. I was looking forward to this one. There's a lot of hype around it. I was excited to get a new movie in here that's like relevant. I think it only came out like a week or two ago streaming. I don't really know. Like it was fairly recent, and it didn't land. So yeah, I think that's the review. Skip this one if you haven't seen it already. It's not really worth your time. I mean, if you're just dying to see something new and unique, or if you're like me and you just love animals and want to see a new situation with an animal in it, I guess give it a shot, but you're probably going to be disappointed. And yeah, on that disappointing bombshell, I'm going to stop, and I'll see you tomorrow.